So welcome back to the Zelda Game Club, and this is where we play through the Legend of Zelda series as a community, and we've reached the final part of Link's Awakening. Well, before we get into it, thank you everyone for playing along. I really enjoyed going back through these old games, and whether you played along now, adding in some comments while we play along, or you've played along in the future whilst watching this on demand, it's great to play through these classic Zelda games with the Triforce Times community. Okay, let's pick up from where we left off, and now it's on to Eagle's Tower. So once we've finished up the Face Shrine, it's time to start our journey to the next dungeon, and that's Eagle's Tower. So first of all, you want to make your way to Signpost Maze, which is southeast of Mabe Village. You've got to follow the signs in Signpost Maze to get through, and follow these signs correctly, and you'll get great, you did it, and your reward is this way. So then a staircase appears, and then you want to go down, and you'll enter a room with frogs, and they're going to ask for 300 rupees to hear them sing. What you want to do is pay them, and they'll teach you a new song called the Song of Soul. Next, you want to make your way to Mabe Village and go to the town square where Marin used to hang out. So now we've got the upgraded power bracelet, we can move the statue in the centre of the square. Push it, and then walk down the stairs, and you'll find a pile of bones. Play the Song of Soul, and the old pile of bones will turn into a rooster, bringing it back to life. Well, the rooster now follows you around similar to Bow Wow from earlier in the game. So once you've got the rooster, you want to make your way to Telltale Mountain Range, and you'll find the owl here, and it'll say go east, but this time you want to lift up the rocks and enter the cave. We went through this section earlier in the game, so it should look familiar. Keep going north and east, and you can use your hookshot or the rooster to help you get around. Look out for the tall ladder, go through the cave and use the rooster to fly across the large gap, and then pick up the bird key, and then make your way through the caves and into the mountain range, and you're going to find yourself at Eagle's Tower. Well, Eagle's Tower is pretty tough, mainly because there's so many rooms in the dungeon. It's easy to get lost, and there can be a lot of backtracking. So the concept in the dungeon is pretty cool though. So the floors above the second floor, they're being held up by pillars, and Link has to use a large ball to knock them down and access the upper floors. As well as the large amount of rooms, we've also got a red Hinox, we've got the Grim Creeper, that's a mini-boss, and also the final boss, the Evil Eagle, and that is a really cool boss battle on top of Eagle Tower. So while the dungeon is complicated, it is pretty entertaining, and the idea behind the dungeon is ambitious and pretty different compared to the others. So once you've defeated the eagle, then collect the heart container, climb down the ladder, go back in the dungeon to collect your instrument, and this one is the Organ of Evening Calm. Okay, let's go to our first community comment from Master Knight DH. Master Knight says, I was about to say Eagle Tower would be my favourite dungeon in the game, but between Turtle Rock's premise, and that I'll get to, and Eagle Tower itself having dated execution, I'll say that Turtle Rock, for how it has its own issues, ends up edging out Eagle Tower. Eagle Tower's own concept still does involve a 4-floor dungeon with a unique map display as far as Link's Awakening on the Game Boy goes, and also does involve having to bring down the pillars to be able to explore the top floor. The length works out for how late in the game it is, but I do have grievances with how they're cheap movements with the BMOS statues, and they're even faster than they were in A Link to the Past, as well as the issue of the anti-Kirby's requiring specific items to destroy. Gibdos have the super armor now, and also it allows the developers to avoid inflating their durability, but fighting them in underwhelming spaces, with that in mind, has its issues. My least favourite part in Eagle Tower goes about how things play out with the west pillars on repeat playthroughs, which would have been fixed by the shifting blocks around the room south to southwest of the pillar for an actual shortcut. Since that is not around, the northwest pillar has to be taken out first for efficiency, and that means wading through the path involving a Hinox, and it's all fine, but the southwest pillar requires throwing the iron ball from within the path with the Hinox, and then going through the path for that exclusively. That's at least 2 times where the path with the Hinox has to be taken, one of those times involving only being able to escape by falling down and ending back at the level entrance. This was never a problem with the Gargoyles domain in A Link to the Past. There you could just beeline to 2F to let the sunlight into the boss room, and then go to the maiden and bring her to the boss room to fight blind and be done with the entire mess. Now, destroying the pillars is already not a simple procedure, so a shortcut would have provided good convenience. It's also worth noting that Grim Creeper personifies a good concept and bad execution issue within Eagle Tower. He does involve only being defeated by destroying all 6 of his Keith buddies simultaneously, and that would have been an interesting battle if you could just corner camp and continuously sword swing that would catch the Keiths all swooping at you. However, I will say that the evil eagle, despite screaming at the player to use the shield as their non-weapon item to block his feathers during his flapping. By the way, the feathers don't require the mirror shield to block, although the mirror shield is still strictly required for reaching Turtle Rock anyway. So while being a side-scrolling segment, it's actually a good fight, since he's got different attacks with distinct tells for what he's doing, so fighting against him is fair and a balanced fight. Well, thank you, Master Knight. As always, really detailed and really good insight there, so thank you very much for commenting. So it's on with our journey to Turtle Rock, so now Eagle's Tower is complete. It's time for the final stretch and to make our way to Turtle Rock. Now, once we get out of Eagle's Tower, our rooster friend appears to have gone missing. So you jump off the ledge and then work your way through the cave network. So you will meet your rooster friend once again. He seems to have found a good home. So you want to leave and then you'll find Marin. Hookshot across that gap to grab Marin, and Marin wants to say something to Link, but Tarin shows up and stops her mid-sentence. And then the owl shows up and talks about the Ballad of the Windfish being a song of awakening. Well, you are going to want to make your way to western Tao mountain range and find the giant turtle. The owl spoke about this creature and said we'd need to bring it back to life, and we know a song that will do that, the Song of Soul. So the turtle then comes back to life, moves its head, then it charges. You want to jump out of the way, let it crash into the wall. While it's stunned, use a bomb to break its mask off and then repeat until the mask falls off. Well, now the mask is gone, whack it in the face with your sword and jump using Rock's Feather to inflict more damage when it tries to move its head out of the way. And once you've defeated the turtle, then it's on to the final dungeon, and that is Turtle Rock. Well, Turtle Rock is probably the largest dungeon in the whole game, which is fitting given it is the last dungeon and it combines pretty much everything that you've learnt in the game, uses most of the items, and overall the dungeon is really good fun, albeit a little bit long-winded, but it is a decent final dungeon for a Legend of Zelda game. Now the final boss is Hothead, so he jumps in and out of lava, hence the name, so you can hit Hothead with the magic rod when he jumps out of the lava, break his shell to reveal a smaller head, and then continue to do damage. So once he's dead, he's got a chilling speech for you, and he'll say you cannot wake the Windfish. After all, Link is in the dream world too. So collect the final heart container, get the final instrument of the sirens, and that is the Thunder Drum, and that completes your collection now, and you've got everything that you need to wake the Windfish. Okay, let's go back to Master Knight DH. So in regard to Turtle Rock, while Via is needlessly erratic, though I suppose that got him promoted to a mini-boss in the Oracle games, where I can already tell he's easier there too, and there's a surplus of issues with the bombable wall handling. That even includes invisible bombable walls to the only crystal switch. That has plenty of rant material in its own right. At least it's nice to refight a lot of the mini-bosses, almost if they have become this awesome fighter now, especially help with the Gibdos on the cracked floor, actually being in an open space for dodging around them. Blano is appropriate, working as a glass cannon in this regard, one that works so much better than Little Mac in Smash Brothers, though Hothead is inexplicably vulnerable to strictly the fire rod, so he is a little bit of a disappointment in the final dungeon boss. Well, thank you, Master Knight DH, but next up we got our final adventure. We go to the Windfish's Egg. So we got our final journey to the egg. However, first of all, we have to stop off at Mabe Village. So there's a library where 2 boys are playing outside on our way to the beach. In that library, in the bottom right hand corner, there's a book with the solution to the maze in the Windfish's Egg. And we have to write down the maze solution. I do believe the solution is different for all players, so it is best to get the magnifying glass as we did earlier on in the game, read the instructions and note down the solution to the maze. Once you've done this, you can make your way north to Tal Mountains and make your way to the egg. Then you want to play the Ballad of the Windfish and break a hole in the egg, then enter for the final showdown. So make your way through the maze using the solution you picked up at the library, and you're going to drop down to find the nightmares. And they say, "We were born of nightmares. To take over this world, we made the windfish sleep endlessly. If the windfish doesn't wake, these islands will never disappear. We would have been the masters of this place, but you had to come here and disrupt our plans. You can never defeat us. Let's rumble." Well, next up, we've got a boss rush and the battle for Koholint Island. So you'll face off against a giant blob. This is pretty easy. All you have to do is sprinkle the magic powder 3 times to defeat him, and then you've got Aghanim's Shadow, and this is a similar fight to A Link to the Past. We have to reflect his magic back at him. Lammola is up next. We have to hit his tail, and then you fight a version of Ganon, and that is also a nod back to A Link to the Past. Really, really good stuff, this boss rush. And then you've got the Death Eye. This is the final form, with the big opening and closing eye in the middle of huge swinging arms. So you can jump over the arms, use the bow to fire arrows into its eye. Do that a few times, and congratulations, you have beaten the final boss. And then you get a great cutscene for the final moments in the game, and let's watch that together now. Okay, let's go back to the final comment from Master Knight DH. And Master Knight says, getting into the Windfish's egg, we do start with a maze where the correct directions are randomised between the game files, but they encourage finding the magnifying glass to read the book in the library that reveals them. After that is the Shadow Nightmare and Aghanim, Moldorm and Ganon. They're actually a really good showcase of Rock's Feather, being useful to keep them fair and balanced within a space that is ultimately still compact because of the Game Boy limitations. And then you got the Death Eye, and then there's Death Eye, who ends up being the closing statement on how much Rock's Feather actually helps, since all three weapons that can even hurt him can be used within mid-air. Yes, 3, because the bombs can also hurt him, which also does make things so compromising in a minimalist run, with only 30 bombs available to knock off his 16 HPs, with the bombs dealing only 1 damage per hit. Of course, outside minimalism, the bow only being strictly necessary for a key in Turtle Rock that's ultimately not fully needed to reach Hothead isn't a problem, and it is kinetic to be able to move and shoot thanks to Rock's Feather. Of course, no discussion about Link's Awakening is complete without talking about the ending. It's in sharp contrast from A Link to the Past idealism, where Link used the Triforce to resurrect the casualties of the game, and all's well that ends well. Here, the player's actions have doomed the game's entire involved civilization, and then have subjected Link to still be stranded shipwrecked out in the middle of the open sea. This does pave the way for later Zeldas to involve tearjerkers, but even Majora's Mask involves the salvation of Termina and a clear continuing journey of Link. Link's Awakening is still trying something new and involving story more actively, so how one feels about it ends up being a matter of taste. I obviously was bothered by the ending back in the day. I find more flaws in the game in recent days, but the story is still unique as far as the Zelda series goes. And it's still an anti-escapism message, and there are also merits still in the gameplay as well, especially Rock's Feather, so it's fair to look back at Link's Awakening based on it being a game from the early 90s. In that regard, it's working well enough, which is the most important aspect at the end of the day. I just find that Link's Awakening, as the Zelda series created team trying to find their footing, and I imagine that the Oracle games will prove to have provided enough gameplay improvements. Well, I just wanted to give a shout out to Master Knight DH. Thank you so much for playing along and providing your comments and your insights. As someone who plays Legend of Zelda games intricately, it's really great to get your insight, and I really appreciate you playing along. So thank you very much, Master Knight DH, and I really look forward to you joining in future Zelda Game Clubs. Well, that is it for Link's Awakening. It's been great fun to go back, and thank you everyone for playing along. I played through a portion of the 2019 version of the game released on Nintendo Switch, but I never finished it. I hadn't seen the ending to this game since I was a kid. So going back to it through the Zelda Game Club was a great experience for me, and made all the better by playing through with you. So thank you to everybody who contributed, and I really look forward to the next one. Well, that is it for this Zelda Game Club for Link's Awakening. We will be back very soon with one of the best games in the series, and that is going to be Ocarina of Time. But we are going to have a few weeks off of the Zelda Game Club, but I will let you know about Ocarina of Time with an announcement here on the channel. Well, if you enjoyed the Zelda Game Club and Link's Awakening, let me know down there in the comments, and thank you so much for watching the Zelda Game Club. As always, you can subscribe on YouTube by hitting that subscribe button down below. Also, would really appreciate if you gave this video a like as well. You can follow me on Twitter at Triforce Times. And if you enjoyed the Zelda Game Club or found it useful, liking and sharing it would really help me out. Otherwise, you can check out all the other videos on the channel. Thanks again, and I'll see you soon.